Welcome to the ProLife Team podcast. I'm Jacob Barr, and today I'm joined by Jor-El with Heartbeat International. And today we're going to talk about the window of providing services to a woman who is choosing abortion, especially for women who are choosing the medication form of abortion. So, Jor-El, I'm excited to have you on the podcast with me again. Would you introduce yourself to those who may not know you and who are listening on their commute and somehow on this podcast who don't happen to know you? Because I think most people who are on here will know who you are.
Well, I hope so. I've been around a good long time, Jacob. I've known you for a long time. I appreciate the friendship that we've had, and I got started in the pregnancy help movement actually in the very early '90s, and have been involved. I was a board member as a local volunteer in a local center in South Florida, and then I went full time in this work in 1996. Went on staff with that very same center, and then moved to Colorado in 1999, where I became the executive director of a center, was there for 7 years, and then came to Heartbeat International, where I get to work in the pregnancy help movement and across the pregnancy help movement, both nationally and internationally. And it's been a privilege to do that for this many years now.
Awesome. So I think what we're going to be talking about today is the window of intervention. Tell me, what are your thoughts on this, or how do you want to begin this conversation about the window of intervention and the speed to service?
Well, this idea of that there is a window of intervention is something that the pregnancy help movement has been operating in from the very beginning. I mean, we go back, the idea that a woman finds herself to be pregnant back in the day, years ago, it was actually rather difficult to determine that she was pregnant. And so she would have to go to the doctor. It was actually a laboratory test that had to be done. She had to wait, for a few days at least for her response. And so the idea of pregnancy help kind of grew up around that. It's like, well, while you're waiting, let's talk about what your options are. And then that changed a little bit when the tests, the personal tests that now became available over the counter. It was easy to do. Then it became cheap enough for pregnancy centers to start offering that pregnancy test. So instead of them going to the doctor, they could actually come in and take the test right in the pregnancy center's office, or with the professional, not the professionals then at that time, more the counselors, kind of a self-administered test. And then as time we get medical services coming in, we have nurses that are a part of this, and then they have more healthcare professionals that can actually administer the pregnancy test. But in time, the pregnancy test itself becomes ubiquitous. It's something that you can actually pick up over the counter or even in a dollar store somewhere. And so the decision making around the test and around what was happening is she always had to take a step. If she wanted an abortion, she had to schedule the abortion. She had to make that, call and schedule that with the abortionist, go to that particular office or a doctor or whatever. And so there was this window of time that was at least days. And of course, in her pregnancy, she doesn't, depending upon when she finds out, she doesn't have to usually make an immediate decision. She had the luxury of days, maybe even weeks, where she could do that and without significant either financial penalty or problem physiologically. Of course, the further along she is, then the more expensive that can become as far as an abortion is concerned. So we're normally dealing with days, maybe even weeks. Well, what we have in 2000, when we have the RU46 that gets basically approved by the FDA, that was driven by the Clinton White House at the time, we have chemical abortion entering in this, developed in France, now is on the shores of the U.S. And as we've seen that grow, and Jacob, our understanding of this just multiplied when we took on the Abortion Pill Rescue Network, which we did about 5 years ago. And I suddenly saw the fact that not only was abortion pill growing, it was growing at it was growing at an exponential rate. So we have, going back a handful of years, there's only about 11% usage. And then suddenly it was 37% usage. And then we realized just not too long ago that as of 2020, that 54% of all abortions were chemical abortions. And so now what's happening is uh, she doesn't have to necessarily wait for an appointment to be on the table with a surgical abortion. These are things that can be accessed much quicker. And so, nevertheless, though, the FDA rule and regulation, what they call REMS, which involves risk and emergency management, uh, they had a rule that was really required her to go see the doctor and be seen, and sometimes that can be done telehealth. So she still had to present to a doctor to get satisfy the rules of the FDA. Well, with COVID, the abortion industry sought for the relaxation of the rules for REMS because of the proximity concerns, with the concerns at the time about the infectious nature of COVID and how proximity was a great concern. And so the FDA relaxed the rules at that time, allowing for greater, quicker access to the chemical abortion with less medical oversight. Then you have the Biden administration basically formalizing that in 2021, December of 2021, and from what we've seen is they basically have moved a lot of that, instead of going to a physician, getting an appointment to then be prescribed a medical abortion or a chemical abortion, the abortion pill regimen. She can do that even now online. She can do that with minimal effort, really, and have that either delivered to her door or made available, through some other means. So, in essence, what's happened is the abortion industry has been intentionally lowering the friction in her decision making so that they can speed her up. And as we know, the tactics of the abortion industry are to hurry her into that decision, so that one, that they get paid, and two, that she makes that as soon as possible. She makes that decision as quickly as possible. That's rather efficient services. That makes their costs less, makes their profit more. But the reality is it rushes a woman into a decision, and if she's being rushed into that decision. So, for instance, she finds out she's pregnant, or thinks she's pregnant. She goes online. She can order the abortion and really have it within a matter almost of hours, like just a couple of days. And so, from a pregnancy center perspective, that's a window of intervention that has been shrinking and continues to shrink, even as our own Biden White House is now in the abortion business, referring those even through a .gov, referring abortion clinics even through a .gov portal. So we know that ever since the FDA ruling in 2021, there have been more and more online efforts to sell chemical abortion. There's everything from Plan C and all that they're doing, and there's a whole host of them that are out there that are now basically making chemical abortion available to women as quickly as they can.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, well, some people that are listening may not know what Plan C is, which is the at-home abortion, essentially is the medical abortion, and which is based off of the main Plan B, which is like the morning after pill. But yeah, just for clarity there. So what are your thoughts on what's the response, or what are your thoughts on how pregnancy clinics and how, what we should do as, well, pregnancy clinics offering services? Like, how does that impact who we are and what we're trying to do, or how we're trying to respond to this closing window, or the efficiency levels increasing?
Yeah, well, one is it makes her ability to access abortion nearly 24/7, right? Nearly around the clock, which means that she can start her research and purchase her abortion in an incredibly short amount of time. Now that means that there's less ability to market to her. Fewer are agonizing over the research and the decision over days. They're really being manipulated by the other side, essentially by the abortion industry, to make a quick decision, to hurry it up. And so that, in effect, increases her likelihood of choosing abortion and decreases our ability to step into her decision-making process with her, which means we need to be quicker to provide speed to service. Now, our movement in pregnancy help has basically been built largely around a volunteer model. Not that we're all volunteers, that's not been true for a number of years, but where we rely heavily on volunteers over the years and decades. And that means those volunteers that have been available, when are they available? Well, in the U.S., we have a phenomenal community that's very charitable, willing to give of their time, but they primarily do that because their kids are in school, and so that means that the regular business hours or school hours are the most likely hours for pregnancy centers to be open. Sure, we'd have maybe some evening hours, maybe we had some Saturday morning hours, but generally we were built to accommodate a volunteer workforce. Now, I know how we got here, uh, but what we begun to find is that is inconsistent with how people are searching for the abortion pill in particular. That might have been a really good kind of parallel to the surgical abortion model, but when we're watching what's happening with chemical abortion, we're seeing something entirely different. So I can tell you from the Abortion Pill Rescue Network, whereas when I look at the call volume for the week, it starts out probably Monday is certainly better than Sunday as far as call volume, but it grows from there and it gets stronger to where the most calls that we get are either on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. For the abortion pill reversal, which means that those are women that have just taken the abortion pill, like they have completed the decision process, and now they're in the midst of taking that. But when I look at the hours open, and we did a study that we published in 2022 for hours open at a pregnancy center, we find that the weekly calendar actually is reverse of that volume. We see good hours. Almost 80% of the centers are open on Monday. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, about a little more than 80% of the centers have some hours on those days. But then Friday is when it drops off substantially. It drops to about 42% of the centers have hours open, and then Saturday drops into about the 20% range when you have when many abortion clinics are open on Saturdays for those that are still receiving patients or looking to receive patients. So as we're in this post-Roe world, we need to reevaluate how do we reach her, and how do we reach her beyond our hours open. And so there's a lot of ways to do that. One is that we are better at our marketing, and I know that's something close to your heart. Another thing is that we are able to connect and care for her quicker, which means that we're able to answer her call, or receive her chat, connect with her around the clock. Now, the good news is Option Line is helping do that. That's been something that we've had, and there are a handful of other hotlines that are able to help with that as well. But I'm convinced that every pregnancy center needs to do more. One is we need to look to be open a few more hours at the very least, like find a way to make the building, the brick and mortar, more of a tool than it has been. If it's continually closed on Fridays, then open up on Fridays, at least some hours. If it's possible to open up on Saturdays, then open up on Saturdays. And that may not mean opening the building and turning on the lights and get everybody. It may mean that we are making a team of advocates available for interaction, for ministry. It may mean making an opportunity for those that are able to engage, maybe not through the brick and mortar, but who now can interact with people through chat or phone calls, so that they're creating that personal connection, and they're doing it much faster than when they are waiting to schedule someone for an appointment in the building. Yes, we want to get them to the ultrasound. Yes, we want to get them in the building. Yes, we want to connect with them in that face-to-face reality. But tools like we're using now, where we can do video conferencing, we can talk to each other, we can see each other, facial expressions, or just the old-fashioned phone calls that we used to rely on early on in the movement when we were trying to create those connections earlier. These are things that we're encouraging and have already seen some movement in that direction.
Yeah. So I'm wondering for the people who are calling the APR network on Saturday, did they have an appointment on Saturday and they took their first pill on Saturday? Or is that a very likely scenario? Plus those who may have gotten the pill on Friday and they waited until Saturday? Or I guess I would guess the abortion clinic is telling them to take the pill after they leave or before they leave, and then to continue on with the regimen over a period of time. So that might mean that those were
Yeah,
both
so that
Friday. Yeah, go ahead.
so that is true as of 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, that's exactly what happened. That the doctor was required to see them in person. That was a part of the FDA REMS, and so we saw this actually played out in the movie Unplanned. That was featuring Abby Johnson's story, where she is the clinic director of a Planned Parenthood. And you can see there's a couple of instances. In fact, to me, that was one of the most striking things that came out of that movie, of which there were many, right? There were some really difficult scenes, but important ones to watch. But to me, one of the most difficult ones was conveyed by a brown paper bag. And one of the last scenes in the movie is a very young looking girl. I swear she looks 15 or maybe she's 16. And what she does is stands there at the counter and takes the first pill and then walks out with the second pill that of the abortion pill protocol from that clinic. But the reality now, Jacob, is that these pills are being delivered to her without the clinic. So yes, she may be instructed on how to take them, but she's not having to go to the clinic to take them. She's now taking them in the, theoretically in the privacy of her own home. We hope it's her own desire to do that and not someone else's being forced upon her. But even then, she's doing that in maybe her dorm room or her home. And so the idea is that she takes the first pill and then she's supposed to take the next pill within 24 or in about 24 hours, because the first pill is mifepristone. It's designed to essentially starve the baby from the progesterone needed to continue. And then the second pill, the misoprostol, is designed to come in and expel the baby, so that this is what they're facing with. This is some of the scenes that we saw in Unplanned that Abby herself experienced. So our challenge, so at Abortion Pill Rescue Network, when we're talking to her, she has already taken that first pill and she's already in the midst of aborting that child. And so now the opportunity for us is to intervene on that. But I'm saying is that the window of intervening in her decision making needs to happen more robustly than simply business hours Monday through Thursday. We need to get more agile in how we're serving. We need to be able to answer the phone referrals. Like, so for instance, Option Line is talking to more than 1,000 people every single day, connecting them with pregnancy help centers all over the country. If possible, and we do have this with some centers, do they have a team that's willing to talk to someone who is at risk for abortion, who's in that place where she needs to talk to someone now about it. She can't wait for the appointment. Well, she may not wait. Let me say that not that she can't, but she may not wait for the appointment that might happen next Tuesday at 2:00. She needs to talk to someone now so that relationship can begin building, that the opportunity to intervene can begin happening. And again, Option Line is doing some of that. We're helping where we can. Certainly overnights and weekends we've done. But my conviction is that every pregnancy help center needs to begin to be rethinking their service model so that they can begin to explore some new technologies to help them develop teams that can reach those that are in their community and even beyond their community more effectively, apart from the actual hours that their physical brick and mortar center is open.
Yeah, I think a likely story would be that if a young woman is picking on when to start the abortion pill, if she's in school, she'll probably pick a Friday to start it because that way she doesn't miss school and has the weekend to feel terrible. And
So that's, by the way, that I agree, Jacob. That's what we're seeing is that was when those are the times when the abortionists were deciding on the appointments. And so that only makes sense that when she's making that determination, she would have the same rationale, right? She
maybe,
knows her
yeah.
calendar. She knows that classes aren't happening on Saturday and Sunday. So if she starts it on late Thursday or on Friday, then she's going to, hopefully, she's going to complete her abortion over the weekend. Now, you and I know from the information that we've received is that sometimes that it can take a week or 2 weeks. Those things are very difficult, and of course put her in some jeopardy as well. But yeah, she's making the same decision as the basically the abortionist did when they were scheduling for her.
Yeah. So on a slightly different angle or topic, when a woman takes this late in pregnancy because there is no medical supervision, and if she's further along in her pregnancy than what the abortion pill will, well, than what it's, than what the paperwork says to take it. What are the consequences or the risks associated with a woman who takes it later than suggested slash recommended by the paperwork?
Well, what we understand from our friend Dr. Delgado, who's done a lot of research along this line and was the founder of the Abortion Pill Reversal Network, what we understand is that the further along the baby is, the less effective the mifepristone is in particular. And so, more than likely, it's if she's trying to do something on her own, a DIY abortion, or she's now introducing more pills. There are some instances we've heard of when you can order these pills from outside the country, and they're not arriving as a single dosage, you know, box. They're arriving as multiples. So if she begins to take things into her own hands and kind of create her own abortion experience by adding to that, she's just going to create more opportunities for what we know is a result of mifepristone, which is hemorrhaging. That she's going to create more opportunities for difficulties to arise for her, and can likely end up in the emergency room.
Yeah, yeah, that's so. Going back to the pregnancy clinics, so pregnancy clinics essentially need to consider. It sounds like the encouragement would be to look at having hours of operation with your phone service, your chat service, um, essentially to extend those hours beyond the operation hours of the brick and mortar to essentially possibly match or surpass, or at least maybe the goal might be to match the abortion clinics in the area, or to match the data that's recognized here, which is to include Friday and Saturday as being just as important as the current days. Sounds like that's really the encouragement. It sounds like.
It is, and it's ways. I particularly think that this is an important way for us to kind of rethink who's available for this missional outreach, right? We have more and more people who are available at home, who are quite comfortable with their remote work job out of their house, and thinking like, well, I do that, that 40 hours a week or more when I'm working, and I have a quite comfortable setup that I'm quite comfortable with the technology. I can work from my with the comfort of my home and take some of these calls. I think we're going to need to raise up a generation of remote missionaries into the mission field created by abortion, who can do this from their home, who are willing to take time from their family, but not too much time that they have to go into an office. They have to drive somewhere to be somewhere else, but that they're able to do it right from the comfort of their own home and be a part of, say, a digital outreach team, or a kind of that online health telecare opportunity. That's one of the things that we've been doing to help stretch our solutions so that we have the ability to do video conferencing and chat and of course texting as well. Like, all of these things are ways that we're going to need to be communicating more robustly. Now, pregnancy centers have been doing many of those things for a long time, but we have to think differently in this day and age when she's able to access. She's able to kind of close the research on abortion faster. She's able to effect the abortion much faster, and more simply. We have to find ways to get into her path so that we can begin to talk to her quicker, and which also kind of goes against the idea that we still have many pregnancy centers that are operating where she's not really a client until she enters the building. Like, that dynamic has to change in our mind. We have to start thinking about her really more dynamically, as she's actively making that decision now whenever you talk to her. Like, so to get that connection of that warm voice, that caring compassion that we are so good at, that I believe is anointed, but we shouldn't let our kind of past structure hold us back from really stepping into what I think is going to be a new era for outreach in our pregnancy help world.
Yeah, I agree completely. And so Drell, would you help us just lift these ideas to God by maybe closing us in a prayer that will allow us just to sort of, focus our desire and need and call out to God for help in this space?
I would love that opportunity, Jacob. Thank you very much. Well, Father, I know that you have called us into a new place, that you have designed and desired that now is the time for Row to go. And Lord, that puts us on new footing. It puts us on new ground. And Lord, just like 50 plus years ago, you raised up the pregnancy help movement for the culture and for the need then. Lord, I pray that you adapt us for what lies ahead. Lord, that you make us digital missionaries, as well as being willing physically to step into someone's life and help them walk through that. May we have the opportunity to do both, Lord, but give us the opportunity to reach her in the moment that she's making those decisions, Lord, and before she closes the loop and pursues the abortion in such a way that we only have limits after that. We thank you that you empower us, Lord, with understanding, with opportunity, with innovation, that you equip us for the ability to reach her in her time of making that decision. Lord, you have been doing that through the pregnancy help movement for decades now, Lord. Help us in this new era to do it in a new way, but with your complete anointing and with your spirit power. We thank you for this. In your name we pray. Amen.
Our sponsors include Heritage House, Patriot Insurance, and iRapture.com.
The Pro-Life Team podcast is a ministry of iRapture.com.
If you would like to explore making a donation or becoming a sponsor or have a recommendation for who would be a good guest on the podcast, please contact us at hello@prolife.team.
Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green. He leads me by quiet blue. Yeah, though I walk through darkest valleys, you are near me. Your protection and guidance are comforting me everywhere that I go. You refresh and restore my soul. You lead me in righteous pathways for your name.